Aujourd'hui, je vais parler de on the path to fire. Let's say you're really itching to give that final notice at work and that you've been grinding away for years for, right? But you're not sure as to when exactly to pull the trigger. Well, lucky for you, I'm here to tell you how I've done it and the mental hurdles to get over. Hey, XenPuck here. Another day not working for the man. And honestly, I consider myself a bit of an expert on quitting, right? Considering in my first 5 years of work, I worked for 5 different employers. And then when I lucked into that giant tech company and didn't need to move anymore, I stayed for 10 years and then exited into the glorious land of fire. So what I'm trying to get at is that I think I have both the audacity to move around and the patience to wait it out when the situation suited me. But today's topic is primarily about when it is you should actually quit if you're ready to leave the workforce entirely. Caveat, of course, I know life is long and the world absurd, so never say never, right? But we're assuming the financial situation is good to great. Math has been done. We're cautiously approaching the end according to our fire philosophy. Okay, so that's the premise. Do feel free to comment, like, share, subscribe if you enjoy my rants to some extent or another, or whatever. I will be great regardless, right? Oh, by the way, so let's get the elephant out of the room immediately. What criteria should be reached before that you can quit? And that's, you know, that you are almost ready, that you have the money, that you can pull 4% or less, you know, that we're assuming you have all that already. Okay, simple stuff. So point number 1, right? First, you got to be sure that you are indeed financially ready, right? And then, to be honest, I would wait another uncomfortable amount of time of median range, such as 6 months to a year. Okay, the reason for this is simple. The extra time to stew is really to reflect on whether you can stand your work still, or you really cannot stand it at all now that you no longer need it, right? Now, of course, 6 months to a year, you'll also earn some extra money. That doesn't hurt either, right? I think of fire as almost as having the same mentality of making a good quality stew, right? It doesn't really hurt to cook it a bit longer than even the recipe says, just to seep in that flavor into the dish a little bit more. Okay? Now, the main problem, of course, is that most people are driven by fear, and we may feel obliged to stay because, after all, a regular job means another regular paycheck, another and another, and that might be hard to let go of. I know this to be true. I felt it myself. Heck, when I left my last gig, I gave up potential stocks worth another $1 million. Was that easy? No, but I did it because the prospect of another $1 million is just that, a prospect, right? That amount of money is not really going to change my life anymore. So definitely do your math, and I suggest, you know, always having more cushion than you can imagine, but, you know, you also have to realize it's a compromise, right, between having more cushion versus how much you can stand your job, right? But that's why I suggest you hit your regular cushion level, then you stay for a few more months, just to really understand what you're giving up, right? The routine, the people, all that, because that could lead into the next criteria, which is very important. And point number 2 is the real kicker, which is when you are emotionally ready, right? This criteria, you know, it's just very personal, highly personal, right? From what I can gather on the fire group's members via Facebook, it seems like some people are ready before they've had even much of a work history, right? Personally, I actually find this kind of strange, right? Like some 20-year-old will already be dreaming of when they don't need to have a regular job. Mostly because I think it's strange because they've barely experienced any range of what a regular job can be, right? And hey, I need to repeat it again, being emotionally ready is very subjective, right? Example, my wifey doesn't seem ready, despite having enough of a stash. She's valued at work, generally speaking. I have my guesses as to why that's the case, but again, it's only a guess. Nobody can tell you to let go of something that has taken so much time of our lives up till this point in this modern era, right? As work. but a loss, because I don't believe that the vast majority of employees actually enjoy their jobs the majority of the time. So that means over time, almost everybody will want to get to retirement, and I'm willing to bet that they can get there much earlier than reaching actual senior citizenhood if they're following my clips, at least, right? Now that we talked a little bit about when to quit your jobs, like what it means to be ready, right? I want to address when you should not quit your job, okay, or at least in my opinion, right? And that is in a moment of panic or defeat. Hey, maybe that's just me, because I don't feel like I want to be defeated by anybody, much less a job. The catch here, though, is, of course, if you've already hit the FI part of FIRE, hopefully mentally you can finally relax a bit, right? No one can actually hurt you at work anymore. You should feel free to say what you'd like to your boss, to anyone, really. I mean, after all, what's the worst that could happen? Your job's going to let you go because you've finally been insulated by the fear of losing employment. So what I'm getting at is simple, right? Even if you really did resent or dislike your job prior to the point of hitting financial independence, hopefully hitting FI would have dampened such a feeling, right? And thus allowing you to actually be able to leave your the place of your employment with some sort of grace, right? I know, it doesn't sound nearly as fun as flipping your boss off on the exit, but the reality is that even your boss is most likely just as trapped as any other employee in the work, right? So have some empathy and don't be an a-hole, right? Do your own thing and then hope for the best for the rest of them, right? The key advantage of leaving on good terms, of course, is that human relationships is important, right? And you want to maintain those, even when you're ready to leave the workplace entirely, right? Especially if you're doing FIRE, which means that you might have decades more of freedom, and having more friends than not can't possibly hurt, right? Now, of course, I know the reality of life is that some people do not get to pick the exact moment of leaving it all behind. Just like with regular employment, sometimes people just get pushed out of their jobs and then realize that they're in some form of FIRE already. That's okay too. My advice is just that, advice, guidelines, and suggestions, right? Nobody should ever make a decision because somebody else said it a certain way. I am an expert on exactly one person. That's me. My own life, right? I trust that anybody who's remotely ready to get into financial independence, retire early, is an active participant in their own lives, right? Rather than just a passenger going along for the ride. So I hope you can take my well-intentioned advice and figure out your own game plan. After all, if you've made it this far into a video on this topic, I'm assuming it's looking pretty good for you on the FI front, at least, right? So let me know about where you are on your journey in the comments below if you'd like. Okay, cheers, à la prochaine.